Welcome to ESSEC, welcome to our beautiful Asia Pacific campus, and welcome to our masterclass on enterprise innovation. My name is Aarti Ramaswamy. As Alia introduced, I am the academic director of the Global MBA program. I am also a professor in the management department. I've been with ESSEC this is my 9th year, so I've been here a long time. What I'm going to do is just deep dive into what the program is about, give you an overview. There's all the information that you need in the brochure. I'm here. Lincoln is also there to answer any specific questions you have. But I'm just going to run through the highlights of the program, all right, because I know you're waiting to learn a little bit more. And I will leave the floor to Professor Kevin Yong, our Dean of the Asia Pacific campus and also a professor in the management department, to lead the masterclass. The topic of today's masterclass, as you all know, is enterprise innovation, which is also one of our key majors in the Singapore campus, along with digital business and strategy and management. So without further ado, ESSEC Global MBA is the answer, right? You're all here with some question in your mind about what to do next, right? You've taken the effort to come here, sit for this masterclass, learn about the program, learn about the school. So there's something in your mind about what to do next, right? How to maybe shift gears in your career. You're probably going through an experience in your organizational life that has enticed you to learn more about how to develop yourself more, invest in your own education, and move it further along the career path that you've chosen for yourself. And I can tell you, you've come to the right place. If you're looking to truly transform your career and move from point A to point B, and point B a much better place than point A. So just to give you an overview of the Global MBA program, as you can see, it is truly a gateway to both Europe and Asia, right? This program is a 12-month full-time program that's offered on the French campus in Cergy, as well as in the Singapore campus, right where you are right now over here. We have 6 different majors, and I will get into it, which we would call maybe the hardware of the program. In the Singapore campus, we have enterprise innovation, strategy and management, and digital business. In the Cergy campus, we offer 4 majors: luxury and brand management, hospitality management, finance, as well as strategy and management. So all the IP of ESSEC, the expertise of the faculty, the years of research and practice and the industry connections that we've had throughout our history from 1907 comes to bear in these different majors. We sort of draw on all our expertise to make the framework of the program as successful as possible and as relevant as possible to the needs of our current students, to the needs of the organizations who will eventually hire from us. A unique digital expertise, academic excellence around centers of excellence. You will know that ESSEC, we have centers of excellence that collect all the expertise under one umbrella, so to speak, so that we can highlight all the different ways in which we promote research and knowledge and our industry connections. So some of our centers of excellence are related to finance, they're related to the luxury industry, they're related to entrepreneurship. All the different majors that you see over here are housed in a specific center of excellence that helps to boost the connections that we have with the practice that the industry wants, as well as what is being taught in the class. A boutique program catering to individual needs. As you know, in ESSEC this year we have about 79 students. It's not too large, it's not too small. It's just the right size for us to be able to know who you are, where you're from, what exactly you want from this program, and it is very individually tailored. And so all the faculty, the career services, the people who are working, the staff of the Global MBA program will know all of our students, and it's a very hands-on approach. So you're not just a number in a large group of students, you're truly a part of the ESSEC family, and we live our words. We don't just say that, we truly believe that the students are an important building block of the ESSEC Global MBA. So to fast track your career, like I mentioned, 12-month program, 6 majors, 2 campuses for the MBA, 3 academic terms that start from September to December is 1 term, and then January to March, April to June, and then from July to August, you deep dive into the most interesting part of your MBA, which is the capstone project, which is a real project solving real problems with a real company, and it could be in any part of the world. So for example, we've had capstone projects right from the UN in Geneva to Philippines, to Bangladesh, to Burma, to South Africa, Russia, India, and even in Singapore. So the capstone project sort of culminates, is a culmination of all the knowledge that you've gained throughout the year and bring it to bear in a real life problem, solving a real life issue in an organization. Numerous electives, you have company visits. There's never a dull moment in the MBA. Once you start, it's you strap your belt on and it's full gear, right? And so you really have to understand that this is a full-time program. You're leaving your full-time work in some way to do another kind of full-time work, because you are shifting gears as a student, but it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to invest yourself in this transformational journey that you've chosen for yourself. One of the things that we also have as a highlight is the digital week. Every year, starting this year, we have students go from, say, the Singapore campus, they meet in the Cergy campus, 1 week long program on digital transformational issues that companies are facing. So we have companies come to us with a specific digital challenge, which, as you know, is one of the key things that companies are facing, and we want to make sure that what the pedagogy that we have for students is very relevant to the problems that the companies are facing these days. So for 1 week, you will be in Cergy working with companies on a specific issue related to digital transformation, and that's when the students from the Singapore campus also get to meet the students in the Cergy campus. They go for field trips together, and it's one way to mingle across campuses between and among different students. We are very proud to present to you also what we call the Alliance of Strategic Partners for the Global MBA program. This year, we started an initiative where we bring on board experts from the industry. Like you can see here, the top names in all the different industries, right from Accenture to McKinsey to Chanel, Cisco, Movenpick, UBS, and so forth. We have CEOs, MDs, and senior executives as a part of our Alliance of Strategic Partners who we meet with once a term, once in 2 months, to really talk about what is it that the industry really wants the new graduates to have, the new MBA students to have, the future leaders and managers to have, so that what kind of pedagogy, what kind of training, what kind of professional experiences are relevant for companies so that we can start to provide that while they are in the MBA program itself. And the chair of this alliance is Mr. Pierre Nanterme, the CEO of Accenture, and he's very invested in making sure that the students are getting training that makes them very agile, makes them very relevant, makes them very innovative, not just performing what you're asked to do, but really thinking thinking out of the box, truly thinking out of the box and trying to see how can we capture opportunities, right, and make them fruitful, make them profitable, make them relevant, make them sustainable for the organizations and the needs that they have in the future. Rankings and accreditation, it's always nice to get validation from the industry and validation from the market. Very recently, just 2 days ago, we had the news that ESSEC Global MBA program ranks 27 worldwide among all the MBA programs, about 232 of them. We are number 14 in Europe. So this is a very good start for the Global MBA program. This is the first time we are in a worldwide Global MBA ranking. And it paves the way for better things to come in the future. And we're very much looking forward to making this program much better and moving up the rankings. We're also ranked number 7 in employability by QS worldwide ranking. As you know, we also have the Triple Crown. We are accredited by ASCSB, AMBA, as well as EQUIS, the standard accreditations that you have for top MBA programs. So this is validation, and I know a lot of students, a lot of applicants who come, they always look for how good the program is relative to others, and the rankings do play a role in the decision-making process. We'll be more than happy to talk with you about how this works and if any other questions you have about the program. The students. Currently, our students are from 23 different countries. We also have a majority across both campuses. Sergi as well as Singapore, we have a majority of women. But in the Singapore campus, currently we have more men than female students. In the Sergi campus, we have more female than male students, partly because we also have the luxury brand management program over there, for which we have predominantly more women applying to that program compared to men. But on an average, we are very good in terms of diversity, not just across gender, but also across educational diversity, background, the experiences that students have, the professional experiences that the students have, the international experience that the students have, and the kind of nationalities that they come from. The average age is about 30. Most of them have about 6 years of work experience. Some of them have 4, some of them have 10. But when we try to get students on board, we really try to see what kind of a student will they be in class? What kind of a peer will they be in class? Will they be able to share their experiences with the students, take the discussion to the next level, right? And sort of ask interesting questions as well about all the different topics that we're talking, whether it's finance or whether it's people management, whether it's marketing. We want to make sure that we have a very interesting class, that you learn not just from me or the professor who's standing in front of you, but you truly learn a lot from each other, right? Your experience in the class is very important beyond the actual pedagogy that is being taught to you. So just to summarize the driving forces of the Global MBA, and I will leave the floor to Professor Kevin Young. Digital transformation in pedagogy and learning. We are truly invested in making sure that whether it's the delivery of the pedagogy or the content of the pedagogy, we are keeping up with the times. We are investing in resources to make sure students really understand what are the fundamentals of digital business, what is digital disruption, what are the new kinds of digital business models, because that's where the future is. And we want to ensure that you have access to that kind of information and the practices that companies are doing in these days. Multidisciplinary ethos in academic content. So when you talk about finance or when you talk about people management, it's not in silos. We really try to see what are the links between these subjects with other subjects. So when you talk about people management, we also think about how does it affect strategy and leadership, because they're all very interrelated. When we talk about finance, we do talk about technology because that's where fintech is going. And so we try to bring in links between different topics and not just talk about it within silos. Global footprint through international experience. You have, if you start in Singapore, you have the option to do a term in France, right? And you also have the option to do a capstone project in another country. You have an option to do an internship perhaps in another country. You also have the field trip that takes you to an emerging market to learn the business practices, the cultural practices of that region. So this is truly a multicultural experience, not just with the diversity of the program that you have, a diversity of the class that you will be in, but also the kind of experiences that you will have once you join the program. Experiential challenges and professional preparation. From day one, you will be in touch with our career services department, who will try to understand who you are, where you're from, why is it that you want to do an MBA, what do you want to do after an MBA. So the career services and the professional preparation it happens from beginning till the end. And at every term, every month, there's some sort of a touch point to see how you're doing, what kind of progress you're making with the self-awareness about where you want to be, and the kind of practices, the behaviors that you're engaging in to help you move up towards the specific goals that you've set for yourself. And finally, career focuses catering to individual needs. We talked about professional preparation, but this is truly tailored to who you are. You know, so there's not just you go through different workshops and that's it. We really sit down with you, have a one-on-one, trying to understand what is it that you truly want from your career. What are the realistic options in front of you? What are the changes that you might want to make within yourself in terms of reaching the different goals that you set for yourself? How to apply? Of course, there's a lot of questions perhaps that you have, and we'll be more than happy to answer. Lincoln is here, I'm here, and also the rest of the team from the Global MBA program is here. Don't hesitate to ask any question. There are no stupid questions. There are no wrong questions. I'm sure if there's a question in your mind, there's somebody else who's thinking the same thing. So do ask and try to get as much information as you want, because this is an important decision that you might be having in your mind about what is the next step you want to take. So don't hesitate to come back to us. The entire application timeline is here. I won't get into the details. It's there in your brochure. It's there on the website. So I'll be more than happy to touch base with you in person, one-on-one, and see if there's anything else that I can help you with in terms of the information about the program. Other than that, I really wish you all the very best in this new journey that you're thinking about for embarking yourself on. And I wish you a great masterclass as well with Professor Kevin Yong. So the floor is yours. I hope I didn't take too much time with our audience here, but all the best. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening. Welcome. Welcome again to ESSEC Asia Pacific. It's my pleasure to invite all of you here and to give a class. Shall we just get started? Okay, good. So let's start with a simple question. And, you know, you're in class again, so you have to answer questions. What does innovation mean for you? What are some of the keywords that come to mind when you hear the word innovation? Disruption, okay. What else?
Agile way of working.
Disruption, agile. So let's write that down. So disruption. Agile. What else? New. Okay. Anything else? Are we good here? Okay, so we're talking about 3 different typical words, right? Disruption, agile, new. Now, next question. Do you recognize these 4 companies? Yeah? Does everyone recognize all 4? No? Can you name all 4? Let's start with a simple one. Top left-hand corner. Xiaomi. Right? Does everyone know this company, Xiaomi? Yes. Yeah? Who doesn't know? Be honest. No? Everyone knows. What kind of company is it? Handphone. It makes mobile phones, right? From China. Top right-hand corner? Dropbox. Easy. Top right-hand, bottom right? Samsung. And then the last company? Pixar. Easy, right? Now, the next question. Which of these 4 companies is the most innovative? Which of these 4 companies represent these 3 keywords that you talk about? Disruptive, agile, and new. Samsung? No, not sure. It's okay, Samsung maybe 2, 3. Let's start from the top left-hand corner again. Xiaomi. How many people say Xiaomi is innovative? 1 person. No, you're not sure. 1 person. Okay, good. Then Dropbox? Okay, a handful. 3, 4, 5. Samsung? Okay, 2. Pixar? Oh, more than half the class. Okay, this is Pixar. Remember, innovation means disruptive, agile, and doing something new. And you just chose Pixar as the most innovative company. Do you notice anything? So what's the difference between Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2? Sorry?
The characters are the same.
The characters are the same, so what's different? The position of the characters, okay? Then the difference between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3? More characters. And then the soon-to-come Toy Story 4, what's the big difference? So this is the company that you say is tremendously innovative, disruptive, agile, right? They're always doing something new. But here's the really interesting thing. Toy Story 3 made more money than Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 made more money than Toy Story 1, and I'm pretty sure when Toy Story 4 comes out, it will make even more money than the previous 3 put together. Now, does this therefore indicate to you that Pixar is not a particularly innovative company? Or do you still feel intuitively this is an innovative company? Anybody? Yes, no, maybe? You're not sure now? Not sure. Okay, to be fair, they are innovative. But why? Why are they innovative? They are really innovative. In particular, Toy Story, the very first Toy Story movie, was really innovative. Why? Do you remember? The technique? What about the technique? The way they make the movies, right? So it's the very first time in animation history, in the history of making animation movies, they were using a new technique, CGI, combined with hand-drawn, right? So it was a breakthrough. But there's something else that they did that was actually more interesting, more innovative than just technology. Anybody know what it is? Okay. Today, I'm going to talk about a method to innovation known as design thinking. How many of you heard of it? Yeah? Maybe? The buzzword, right? But what sets design thinking apart from other methods of innovation, or why is it so popular today, is because it's human-centered. It focuses on the target user, the audience, or the customer, as a human. Now, Toy Story 1 is a really great example of human-centered innovation. And why is that? When Pixar came about, just so you know, Toy Story is the very first feature-length movie. So prior to making Toy Story, they used to make all these shots 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But as they were developing their first feature length, they realized something really interesting about animation. In the animation industry, prior to Pixar, they realized that every time a new movie, animation movie will come out, what happens? When Disney makes or opens its first next animation, what happens? All the kids will go to, Mama, Papa, I want to go watch the new movie. And then how do parents react? Right? And now I'm going to waste 1 hour, 90 minutes of my time, take them to the cinema. I'm going to be bored. Then fathers might say, okay, maybe I can take a nap. Right? So what they realize about new animation movies is that while the target audience for animation movies were children, whenever a new animation movie came out, no child would ever go to the cinema by themselves. An adult, their parents, an auntie and uncle would take them. And they understood that these movies were not made for adults and asked themselves a very simple question. Could we possibly make an animation movie that would entertain children and adults at the same time? And what happens when you do that? They basically found a new market segment for their product. Same product, double the market size, or even increase exponentially. How many of you watch Pixar movies? Be honest. We all do, right? And you enjoy it, right? So that was the real breakthrough. The real breakthrough, the real innovation was this recognition that the human experience of animation movies could be experienced by both children and adults if you think through this interesting way of solving the problem. Now, the next thing that you will realize is, why does Toy Story 2 look like Toy Story 1, Toy Story 3 look like Toy Story 2? Well, they're sequels. But there's a very important reason behind this sequel. It's what we call routine innovation. Once you have a breakthrough, hit repeat. In terms of a business model, it's a great long-term investment. You invest a lot in the first one, you get great, you hit repeat. And there's a lot of returns on your initial investments. Okay? So let's go to the next example. What do you see? Do you recognize these two brands? Yeah, remember, you recognize Samsung, right? For sure. How many of you recognize Asus? Yeah? Good. You've probably seen the laptop or you use one. Do you ever seen this product called the Asus Pad Phone? Yeah? No? Anyone seen it? Not at all? Sorry? It's not too, yeah, it's a while ago. But let me explain to you, can you even see what this is? It's actually a tablet with a dock where you can put your smartphone in. Now let me explain to you what was the inspiration behind this. So both Asus, talking about design thinking, both Asus and Samsung were companies that realized that they wanted to be innovative. So they learned this thing called design thinking. They got all the engineers to learn it. They inculcated into the culture, and they used this method. And remember what design thinking is? Human-centered. Let's create value for our customers as humans. So, what inspired the Pad phone was Apple. When Apple first released the iPad, remember when they first released the iPad? Right, when the iPad came out, everybody wanted one. Okay, out of curiosity, how many of you own an iPhone? Okay, of those who own an iPhone, how many of, okay, not just those, how many of you own an iPad? Okay, good. What's the difference between your iPad and your iPhone? It's smaller, lighter, it's size. Okay, what's the other difference about your iPad and your iPhone? just the size, right? So just think about this for a moment. For those who own an iPhone and an iPad, a brand new iPhone is about $600-700 US. A brand new iPad is about 1,000 US. So basically, for those who own an iPhone, you just bought a bigger iPhone when you buy an iPad. So ASUS thought about that and say, hey, wait a minute, that's really expensive. It's $1,700 US in total that you're spending. What if we come up with a human-centered, we create value for our customers as humans, and we do a two-in-one solution for you, right? Because the essential difference between an iPhone and an iPad is just the size, right? So I could save you a lot of money by saying, let's just use your one CPU with your iPhone or your smartphone, and I create this accessory that's a tablet. So that when you want to use it as a tablet, I put the phone into the dock, and I get a tablet form. The functionalities are the same. So I save you money, I reduce from 2 products to 1, and then therefore, you should want to buy my new product because I created value for you. 1 product instead of 2, half the price, isn't that creating great value for you? You get the same functionalities, you get the same product value. Now, as most of you realize, you've never seen it before. What does that mean for its success on the market? It failed, right? Or is it because you just never seen it? Now that you see it, would you buy it? Oh, why not? Why would you buy it?
Why would I want to carry 2 when I could have an iPhone Plus?
No, this is for those who own an iPad and an iPhone. Instead of owning an iPad, iPhone, okay, but you see, you just said it, right? You still carry 2. It's still 2. Some of you would say, okay, but it's not Apple. That's why I don't buy it. So because it's not Apple, because it's Apple, I'll pay twice as much money. Right? No? So just to share with you, the first thing, it is still 2 products. If you think about it, I carry an iPad, I carry an iPhone, it's 2 products. You give me this option, you actually haven't solved it. I still carry 2 products. Yes, I still have a smartphone, but I have this accessory. It's an accessory, but it's still the same size, it's still the same weight as a tablet, right? Now, it gets even more interesting. Imagine you own one of these products and you're using it in tablet form. And then the phone rings. You actually can't answer the phone. You have to stop what you're doing, open the thing, take out the phone, then answer. Which means there's an additional 1 or 2 steps. It's not convenient. In fact, not only is it not convenient, they just make your life more complicated. So that's the thing about understanding human-centered design or human-centered approach to innovation. Just because you're making it half as expensive or cheaper, you're not really creating any value for me. In fact, innovation or technology is supposed to make my life simpler, not more complicated. So what happened here? Despite the fact that ASUS was using this method called design thinking, they solved the wrong problem. Let's look at Samsung, Galaxy Note. How many of you own a Galaxy Note? Just 2? On this side of the room? Interesting. You even fit the stereotype, but I'll come to that shortly. Samsung Galaxy Note is a very important phone. Why is that a very important phone? Sorry? Because of the stylus. Oh yes, before we come to the stylus, it's the phone that broke the dominance of iPhone. So prior to Galaxy Note, the iPhone had 80% of the smartphone, had market share, 80% of market share. After the Galaxy Note entered, suddenly there was a real competitor. So today, iPhone has about 30 to 40%, Galaxy has about another 30%, and then the rest, the other phones, right? So it's broken the dominance. Samsung, like ASUS, took the same approach. They did design thinking and did a 2-in-1. But how did they go about designing this Apple killer or Apple alternative? When they were working together, a bunch of engineers trying to design a new smartphone that will compete with iPhone, they noticed something. All their engineers, in addition to having a smartphone, even though they had a smartphone, they all carried this small little notebook. You know, like the engineers want to do, they put in the pocket with their pens. Did you guys have that? Oh, there you go. So the engineers, they realized, they asked themselves, engineers still carried that small little notebook. So how do we design? What if we try to design a smartphone for engineers, where we will combine the smartphone with the notepad? That's why it's called the Galaxy Note. Did you know this? Has it ever occurred to you why it's called the Galaxy Note? It's because of the notepad. And the first Samsung Galaxy Note that came out was the same size approximately as the notepad that engineers would use. And then, as they also recognized that this notepad worked because engineers would write the notes rather than type. So it was very important that when you combine that note-taking feature into the phone, they could replicate the writing. So they created this new innovation called the stylus. Great new innovation, correct? It's new, right? No? It's not new? Where is it from if it's not new? Oh, thanks for showing your age. Thank you for being honest. Only old people know this. Only old people know about, young millennials don't know anything about Palm, but I'm kidding, okay? But yes, it's an old innovation. It came from Palm Pilot, way even before our first smartphone. It's the PDA, the Personal Digital Assistant. And this here's the really important thing about innovation. Sometimes you can bring old stuff back and create a lot of value. In fact, you know these selfie sticks? Also old. The Japanese came up with this in the 50s and 60s. They had a selfie stick back then. They really did. Yes, there was no smartphones. So they decided to, you know the old cameras, the big, they'll put it, and then there's a string and they'll pull. It's very heavy. You can find some of these old pictures. Of course, it was completely useless then, right? Nobody wanted. Now that we have smartphones, the selfie stick makes more sense. But again, coming back to this point of the stylus. 2-in-1, same strategy. Same strategy as ASUS, but Samsung got it right, ASUS got it wrong. Why? Because Samsung was trying to solve the right problem. ASUS was solving the wrong problem. ASUS thought they were trying to get you to try and make things cheaper for you and reducing fewer products. Whereas Samsung was trying to put two items together and improve your life. So you don't have to carry that notepad anymore, if you think about it. Okay? What do you see? What difference do you see between these two smartphones? Brand? Okay, what's the difference in the brand? One is Apple, our favorite brand. The other brand is? Xiaomi. Other than the brand, do you see any other differences?
The shape.
The shape. One is curvy. Sorry, one is curvy, right? Yeah, one is sharp. Yeah. And because of that curviness, I'm going to pay 6 times more. The price difference between these two phones are 6 to 7 times. Notice how none of you mentioned the functionalities. There's essentially no difference. Yeah, you can say operating system. One is Android, one is OS. But in fact, some might argue the Android system is much more. You have more apps, you have a greater range. So, for fewer possibilities and rounded edges, I'm going to pay 6 or 7 times more. Yeah? Anyone own a Xiaomi? But now that I showed you that the Xiaomi is a superior product, are you going to change to Xiaomi? Get rid of your iPhone and get a Xiaomi? No? Why not? I just showed. You're loyal to Apple. That's fine, because of loyalty, brand loyalty, right? That's the great thing about this innovative company called Apple. It's all about brand loyalty.
And also because I'm used to, I started with iPhones all the way.
So you want to stick,
It's not difficult to
switch,
over.
even though it's essentially a potentially better product. Yeah, and then you start to think to yourself, what's going on here, right? But here's another interesting fact. Xiaomi is the one company that Apple tried to compete with and lost. In fact, when Xiaomi first came out as a startup, when they started making these phones, Apple will accuse Xiaomi of being lazy and say, you're not innovative. And Xiaomi will come and say, yep, we're not trying to innovate, we're not trying to compete with you on the phones. You guys have designed much better phones than we have. But here's the interesting thing. Apple could not compete with Xiaomi in certain market segments. In fact, Xiaomi, the main reason why Xiaomi exists is because Xiaomi found a market segment that Apple could not penetrate. A very big market, a sizable market that Apple could not get anybody from that market segment to buy their phone. Which market segment is this? Chinese? The China market? You think the China market would not buy iPhones? Hmm? The middle class? The middle class, but the rising middle class in China is very, buying lots of stuff. The working class? Okay, getting there. But it's a very specific market segment. Now, ask yourself, take a few steps back. The market segment that Xiaomi found was called the Chinese teenager. Think about it for a moment. All the applications of an iPhone, right? Apps, internet access, surfing the web. Every teenager would enjoy and appreciate these applications. This is a product for teenagers, right? But let's do some mathematics. How many people live in China? 1.3 billion. How many of that 1.3 billion are teenagers? Let's say, meaning from the ages of 12 to 21. Let's say 30%. So 30% of 1.3 billion is approximately 350 million people, or 350 million Chinese teenagers. Just ask yourself, how many of these 350 million Chinese teenagers can afford a brand new iPhone? But how many of them would appreciate or value the functionalities of an iPhone? Pretty much all of them. So that was the goal. The goal is, how do I deliver the functionalities of an iPhone to this market called the Chinese teenager, the market size about 350 million. And let's say 10 million of that kids can afford an iPhone. That still leaves me 340 million that's underserved. Right? So what did they do? They set out to make a smartphone that costs $1 US dollars above cost to make. Brand new. And today, some of you might know, Xiaomi is in the top 5 market capitalization biggest tech firms in the whole of China, only behind Tencent, Alibaba, Baidu. So, how is it that when you can make $1 off a brand new phone and be worth so much? Any thoughts? And this is a company, again, that Apple tried to compete with and failed. Servicing? Well, it turns out, let me ask you the next question. Some of you didn't actually recognize the logo, right? Just now, I'm going to show you the orange logo. Have you ever seen a Xiaomi advertisement? So Xiaomi has spent $0 or marginal money on advertising. How much has Apple spent? Apple builds things like Apple stores, right? Those things are beautiful. Those things are great. But those things are also expensive. Right? You've probably also never seen a Xiaomi store. There are rumors of a Xiaomi store nowadays. Okay? But there's no Xiaomi store. There never was. There was no advertising. But let's take a few steps back. The first thing they did, pricing at $1 above cost. And how did they turn that profitable? The first thing they did was their product life cycle. Who owns an iPhone 10? I refuse to say iPhone X. Anyone own an iPhone X? 9? 8? 7? 6? Wow, okay. Those who own a 6, do you own a 5? Did you own a 5? Do you own a 4? Do you own a 3? You 2? 1? What are you loyal about? Why didn't you buy 7, 8, 9, and 10?
No, I'm waiting. No, there's no need to buy 7. 8.
Okay. Okay, never mind. I mean, I was just making a joke. So, as you know, Apple just launched iPhone 10, right? Or iPhone X. But recently, they also celebrated the 10th anniversary of iPhone, which means that, on average, every year, a new iPhone comes out. Not to mention the S's that comes out intermittently, which means that the product life cycle of iPhone is that you get a new product, you get a new version every 12 to 18 months. The product life cycle of a brand new Xiaomi phone is between at least 24 to 36 months. And it was a deliberate choice. By doing that, they can keep the price constant, but because the product life cycle is 24 to 36 months, the cost of production exponentially decreases. Right? They have volume. This is China. They find efficiencies really quickly. And when that happens, think about it. My price stays the same. My cost of production exponentially decreases. What happens to my margin? Exponentially increases. Clever, right? And to maintain that kind of thing, remember, they also never did any marketing, or rather traditional marketing. They don't open stores. Why? Because the target market was Chinese teenagers. And they realized that teenagers don't need to go to stores to buy stuff. They're on the internet all the time. So what do? We have online stores. We sell the phones online. And by selling on online, what happens? You don't have great overheads. You don't have to hire staff to run stores. Third, if we don't have advertising, how do we communicate to the Chinese teenagers that we are releasing new phones? So they came up with a very clever guerrilla marketing tactic. When it was time to release a new phone, they would send a note out on social media, on Weibo and all this, and it says, the first 2,000 or 20,000 who turn up and this time and this date at this website will get a free Xiaomi or get it at a really cheap price. Guess what happens when that time and day comes by? A few million teenagers and then stampede. I mean, it's an online stampede, right? It's basically an online stampede. But why did they do that? Because they realized that their target market was Chinese teenagers. So let's market to Chinese teenagers. Let's create a marketing campaign to replicate the experience of buying tickets to my favorite pop star's concert. And what happens when that happens? So it means that even if I don't get the phone, I desire it. Clever. And by doing all this, engaging their customer, they understood who their customer was. They tailored their marketing. They tailored their delivery system, their delivery channels to sell to the teenagers. And it was all designed for the teenager. And the really interesting thing here is that where they were innovating is not the product. They were basically innovating on the business model. They were being disruptive. They disrupted the business model of selling smartphones to a new market. And it's really clever. Apple realized this, so Apple came up with an iPhone that will compete with the Xiaomi directly. Do you know which iPhone this was?
5C.
The 5C. Clearly you must have owned one. You did not, but you know about it. Why didn't you own it, out of curiosity?
What a 5 instead, the 5C.
Ah, interesting. There was a 5C. Anyone know the 5C? The one with the color backing and all that, right? The 5C was designed specifically to challenge Xiaomi and lost. Why? Well, first of all, it's still expensive. It's still $200-300 US. Yes, it's cheaper than a regular iPhone. Yeah, but it's still expensive compared to Xiaomi.
I'm not wrong, it was only marginally cheaper.
It was only marginal, exactly, right? And then to make matters worse, not only was it marginally cheaper, they were trying to design it for teenagers with that color plastic. It actually made the phone look cheap. So people are like, oh no, let's not. Very poor, right? The business model didn't work. The innovation didn't work. The problem with iPhone or Apple is they cannot sell cheap phones. The cost of making an iPhone or delivering the iPhone to you is really high. They have to innovate. They have an Apple store. They have advertising. They have marketing. Very expensive. So no way. Okay. So this is what Xiaomi was very clever at. They innovated on the business model, not the product. Last example. How many of you use Dropbox? You all recognize it, but out of curiosity, how many of you use Dropbox? Good. Better. How many of you pay for it? Nobody pays for it? Oh, cheapskates. But trust me, somebody in this building pays for it, that's why we're all using it for free. But I'll talk to you about that shortly. Do you know how or what inspired the invention of Dropbox? The USB key. This key, right? You all recognize this, right? All of you used this before? Do you remember life before the USB key? Hard disk and floppy disk. Remember the floppy disk? Those little things that have 1.44 megabytes? And then we will have a whole box of it. Right? Then after that, we had CDs that had 700 megabytes. And then after 700 megabytes, these little small things came around. And I think the first few were like 16 gigabytes or something. Right? So 16, just think about it. 16 gigabytes in a small thing. Now I think you can put how many gigabytes? Like ridiculous amounts, right? Think about the number of floppy disks that go into that small thing. Great product, right? Really great, really cheap. What's the problem with it? What happened when USB key was the best product we have before Dropbox? What's the problem with USB keys? You lost it. You lose it, right? Some of us even lose our life there. We forget to back up, put everything there, we lost it, it's dead. Right? So, when this was the weakness of the USB key and we lost it, before Dropbox existed, what did we do to make sure that we don't lose our lives because of the USB key? You use several backups with many USB keys. You convert it into?
CDs.
Yeah, and then what do you do?
Store it somewhere.
Store it somewhere. Do you remember emailing yourself? Remember we started emailing ourselves? Right? We started emailing ourselves. And then when you started emailing yourself, there's one big problem. I got a smartphone, I have a tablet, I have a laptop at home, then I have a machine at work. So if I work at home, then I email myself. When I turn up for work, there's like 3 versions. Now when I'm downloading, which version is this? Am I making sure I call? Remember, technology is supposed to make my life simpler, not more complicated. So the inventor of Dropbox found this really, really smart PhDs at MIT. Really, he was a PhD student at MIT. Turned up for school, got off the bus, and realized he'd forgotten his USB key. Right, got really pissed off with himself and go, I have to go all the way home and go and get that thing. But at that point, he was thinking to himself, he realized that people were emailing themselves. So many, how do I solve this problem? How do I lead life without having a USB key ever again? And when he understood that people email themselves, and when you email yourself, you have this problem of synchronizing your documents, he asked himself a very simple question. How do I ensure that if I update a document in one device, all my devices are synchronized? Sounds great, right? Now today we have that, but remember life before that? Right, so that's the problem he tried to solve. All I have to do is upload or update the document on one device and all my devices sync up. Right? Great idea. Now, let me ask you something. Do you remember the moment when you first decided to use Dropbox? Do you remember that moment? That moment you went from not having Dropbox in your life to the next moment where Dropbox, or it just feels like Dropbox has always been a part of my life. Do you remember? Yeah, you remember when you first adopted it? Why did you adopt Dropbox? Share files, but you went to look for it or someone sent it to you? Someone sent it to you, a friend, right? So every time a friend sends you something, you do it. Yeah? So a friend tells you, please download this, you sure go and download it. Correct? So you remember with the first time when you downloaded, installed it to your computer, what happened? Interesting, right? Do you remember anything about how Dropbox entered your lives?
They give you more space, should you promote it more?
They give you more space, but do you remember how you learned how to use it? How did you know how to use Dropbox? Sharing? Someone sends you a link? So anytime anyone sends you a link, I'll click on it and confirm. Then they ask me to download, I just download. Think about it. You can also upload. No, I mean download and install this new. Have you ever heard of Dropbox before you implemented it? Which company is Dropbox from? Is it from a trusted company? No, we download things because they are free. We just use things that are free, right? And then why is it called Dropbox? Have you ever seen a Dropbox advertisement? Yeah, so how do you know it? How do you know it's trustworthy? What even made you decide to use Dropbox in the first place? Yeah, we can share files. Easy to say that, but think about it. Stop for a moment. I could have emailed you something. Dropbox is a very cleverly well-designed innovation. Beyond the algorithm that synchronizes everything, there's a reason why it's called Dropbox. When you launch your Dropbox application, what does it look like? Sorry? It looks like a box. Like an open box. What kind of open box? Yeah, you can't answer me because it looks like any regular window in your computer, right? It was designed deliberately like this, to look exactly like any normal window. It's supposed to behave like any normal window. Why? That means you don't have to learn. And because you don't have to learn, you just drag and drop. It's intuitive, it's easy, I don't have to learn. What does that mean for adopting this new technology? I adopted. What you don't remember is that Dropbox came from an unknown company, a startup, that had barely any employees. In fact, the first customer they went after was the corporates. They were actually originally thought about B2B. And the corporate said to them, no way we're going to adopt your technology because you don't come from any known company. You're not from Microsoft, you're not from Apple, you're not from Amazon, you're not from any company we've ever heard of. You're brand new. There's no way we're going to trust our company's information to you. So they pivoted. They went after customers like yourself, myself. But they also knew that because they had no brand name, they have no advertising, got no money, they're a startup, how do they make sure you adopt it? First, the product itself works really well. Like you said, I can share files. Because prior to this, I couldn't never share files. Not big ones anyway. Second, how do I know about it? A friend referred it to me. So they use referral systems. Like you said, if I share it with someone, I'm going to get more space. So I have an incentive. But at that point, I already adopted it. But if I receive it from a customer experience, I know coming from a friend that's someone worth trusting. Second, but what's this company called Dropbox? What's this link? How difficult is it to adopt this new thing? So I click on it, it works naturally. I just drag and drop. It's so simple, it's so easy. Basically, they recognize that because they have no brand, they have less than 30 seconds or less than 1 minute to impress you and show their value proposition to you. You understood their value straight off the bat. And that's also a reason why if you look at your Dropbox today, even though no matter now they're a successful company, they continue to look almost exactly the same. There's been a lot of calls for them to make it more complicated. But they recognize that they cannot. If they do that, people will stop using it. Yeah? Now, most of you use Dropbox, right? I hope you didn't put anything personal in those things. Do you know where your Dropbox documents and materials are sitting with? You do know that it's not with Dropbox, right? You do know that your stuff is with another company, right? Do you know which company this is with? Like, suddenly you're shocked already. What, you mean my stuff is not with Dropbox? Huh? AWS. Who's AWS? Anyone know? Amazon Web Services. All your stuff is sitting with Amazon. Wow. Mind blown. But this is an important part of the business model. This is an important part of the strategy. When Dropbox came about, they knew as a startup, their unique value proposition was the algorithm that would synchronize and update all the devices. But for something like this to work, you need a cloud service. But cloud is expensive. Okay, you do know cloud is not cloud, right? It's a physical space, right? And those things are expensive. And as a startup, there's no way you're going to convince any investor to give you money, the kind of money to build cloud. So what do? They realized that Amazon had a great cloud system, hardware, that interestingly at that point wasn't getting that much traction. it worked well, but wasn't getting that much traction. So they went to Amazon and they negotiated a very interesting deal. They said they negotiated a pay-per-use, which means that in a classic model, I will buy space first, then acquire customers. That means I pay Amazon first, then I acquire my customers. They did it the other way. They got Amazon to agree that I won't pay you anything till I acquire the customer. So every time a customer acquires, then I pay you, because that's when I start using space. So the cost model is very tight. It's very clever. And here's the other kicker. Dropbox was one of the late entrants into the cloud service space. In fact, investors were saying, when the Dropbox inventor went to pitch his idea, the investors were saying, why should we invest in you? There's like 33 other companies doing this already. And rumor has it, legend has it, that he looked at all the investors and said, are you using any of these other 33? And the answer was no, because his was the first one that actually worked. It was simple to use, it was reliable, it was safe. And that's why partnering Amazon was so important, because it's reliable. Think about it. How many times have your Dropbox not worked? And now that I told you that your stuff is from Amazon, are you feeling safe about the security of your documents and material? No, you're not feeling safe, right? Because it's Amazon. In fact, but this is the part you should feel a little bit safe. I'll tell you why. Because the way the technology works, when you upload your document, to make sure it works, they will take your document, break it up into many small pieces, make duplicates, and randomly distribute it across the world. And this is a very important part of the plan, because this is why wherever you go, when you travel and you just reconnect to the Wi-Fi, everything is there, because they're pulling from all over the place. And the idea here is they also want to ensure that should you be in any place where the infrastructure breaks down, they can pick it up from another infrastructure, so you always have continued service. And second, because they break into smaller pieces, they encode it, and they split it all over the place, there is only one way to hack into your Dropbox. There's only one way. I have to hack Amazon. So that's how safe it is. It will take a government-level type hacking effort, or collective. It takes a lot of effort. You have to hack Amazon to get to your personal stuff. So yes, it's not 100% safe, okay? But it's pretty safe, okay? Now, bonus question. Anybody know what country USB key was invented in? Huh? Singapore? Do anyone know this? USB key, made in Singapore. And this is the bonus innovation lesson. The bonus innovation lesson is find a successful Singapore innovation, exploit its weakness, and you can retire tomorrow. Because that's what Dropbox did. And by the way, that's what Apple did too. Anyone remember the iPod? The very first iPod? Remember the very first iPod? Yeah? Did you know that the iPod, till this day, is not the best MP3 player on the market? There is actually another MP3 player where the quality of the sound is much better than iPod. Much, much better. Which MP3 player is this? Creative Zen. Anyone know who Creative Zen is? They come from which country? Singapore. So what's this company called Creative Zen? Some people from Singapore know who Creative Zen is. The non-Singaporeans probably are like, well, what's this? Any gamers here? So Creative Technology is one of the world's most innovative companies. Not today, but in the past. Today is kind of passé. But in the past, why? Because it created this groundbreaking product called the Sound Blaster. And if you are a gamer, you remember the Sound Blaster. This is a sound card that goes into your computer to make the sound really good so that the gaming experience is perfect or enhanced. So he was an expert, or Creative Technology was an expert at making sound or digital sound. So when music started becoming digital, it seemed only natural that they would go into making MP3 players because they make good sound. But why is it that when they make this high quality digital sound player, MP3 player, why did it lose to Apple? Why did Apple succeed where Creative Zen didn't? Take a few steps back. What's the value proposition? Or before MP3 players, what did we have? Huh? Before MP3 players, Walkman. Well, that's, first of all, you're damn old. Second of all, you skipped one product. Mini disc. Oh, yes, even worse. That's such a geek thing. The CD player, right? The CD man. Discman. I remember the Discman. We had one disc, maybe 20, 23 songs. And then we'll carry that little pouch with all our CDs. So right, for each CD that has 20 songs, if we carry our pouch with 50 CDs, we have carry 1,000 songs. Right? It was so cool. We had a whole music collection with us. So what did the MP3 player or iPod come? What was the value proposition of Apple iPod? 1,000 songs in my pocket, right? Steve Jobs said, let's put 1,000 songs in my pocket. The MP3 player, great thing, 1,000 songs in my pocket. So Creative Zen also made 1,000 songs in my pocket. Both iPod and Creative Zen had 1,000 songs in my pocket. The sound quality of Creative Zen was significantly better than iPod, and yet today, few of us even know about the Zen MP3 player. Everybody knows an iPod. Chances are everyone's owned one. What happened?
Branding?
Again, it's because it's Apple, so we buy anything that's Apple. No, I'll tell you what it really is. It's not just branding. People say it's branding, but it's not. We might just remember this. Now I have 1,000 songs in my pocket, which means that I have my whole CD collection or my whole music collection in my pocket. But here's the problem.
Oh, ecosystem.
Before we go into the ecosystem, even before the ecosystem is the second part of the thing. It gets better. You're right. It is part of the ecosystem. But the first thing that came, imagine this. I have 1,000 songs in my pocket. I'm listening to song number 3, and then now I want to skip to song number 976. The Creative Zen had a minus button and a plus button. What did the iPod have? The beautiful click wheel. So Steve Jobs was wrong. He asked for 1,000 songs in his pocket, but what his designers and innovators came up was the real value proposition of the Apple iPod is access to my 1,000 songs in my pocket. People don't care about the quality. The sound quality of iPod was here, the sound quality of Creative Zen was here. This was good enough. But having access to that 1,000 songs in my pocket was fantastic, right? It makes sense. From 3 to 963. This is why it was so, the user friendliness, the user experience, the human experience of using an iPod made much more sense than the Creative Zen. That was the innovation. And it gets better, right? Let's talk about the ecosystem. The ecosystem that people talk about that came with the iPod was what? iTunes. Do you guys use iTunes? Okay, do you know where iTunes came from? What was the inspiration for iTunes? There's this thing called Napster. How many people use Napster? I have used Napster before. Criminals. Steal music, right? You're called a criminal, right? Does everyone know what Napster was? So Napster was a peer-to-peer system where you could share music. You would buy your CD, rip all your music, put it on the web, and then just share with each other. And then all the music companies went crazy and go, oh, these people are criminal. Right? Stealing music. Calling the governments, you have to shut this down, blah, blah, etc. Right? Remember all this? Apple realized by looking at Napster that they could create a new ecosystem, and they realized that people didn't want to steal music. People would pay for music, right? It turns out what they realized, this is the part where iTunes came in and disrupted everything. By looking at Napster, the real reason why Napster existed is not because people wanted to steal music. The real reason people use Napster is because when Taylor Swift comes up with her next pop song, that one that I just must have, what do? I go to the CD shop, I buy a CD with 25 songs for that one song that I want. So I paid for 24 other songs that I don't want just to get that one song. Except if it's the Beatles, every song is good. Right? So that model had to be disrupted. So iTunes asked themselves, Apple asked them, what if I could sell you one song? Right? I charge you $1, $1.99 or $2.99 for the very popular ones. And that's it. You don't have to buy a whole CD. Guess what happened? People started moving from Napster to iTunes, people started paying for music. Started making money for the music companies again. And here's the best part, right? Now that I have 1,000 songs in my pocket, what do? I will buy 1,000 songs for $199 each. I'll spend $2,000 to fill up my little MP3 with 1,000 songs, right? And here's the kicker. When you were using your iPod, how many songs did you really listen to? The same 23 songs. This man would have been fine. But we just value the fact that we think we need 1,000 songs. And now you can put 10,000 songs and so on. But we still listen to the same 23 songs. Okay? So, coming back to this, I wasn't being fair to you. When I asked you which of the 3 companies are the most innovative, the nice thing is some of you said this company, that company. All 4 rather, have been tremendously innovative. But what they've done is 4 different strategies, but the same approach. The first strategy, when you look at Pixar, once you have something that works, you hit repeat. It's what we call routine innovation. And Pixar is not the only company that did it. Apple, our favorite product, iPhone. Apple 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you have it, hit repeat. BMW does it. Toyota does it. Honda does it. Nike does it. Adidas does it. A whole lot of companies do it. Once you have a great product, an iconic product, hit repeat. It doesn't even have to be iconic, just successful. And hit repeat. But be very careful about this particular strategy. The good thing about this strategy is that the next version doesn't have to be a breakthrough. You don't always need to have a breakthrough. You just need an improved version. But that improved version must be different enough. Both Apple and Pixar learned the hard way that the difference matters. It must be different enough. Apple iPhone 6 was the first iPhone in the entire history of iPhone where the profits flattened out. There was no growth. It flattened. Still profitable, but it flattened. First time they not only did not acquire new customers, they have lost some of the existing. Meaning the existing companies, some who buy 5 would not do 6. In fact, a lot of 5 users skipped to 7. A lot of 5 users never bought 6 because they said what's the difference between 6 and 5? Not much. Not enough for me to want to change to 6. The difference between 4 and 5 big enough, 3 and 2 big enough, 2 and 1 big enough. In fact, 8 and 10 big difference, so big skip. Anyone ever seen an iPhone 9? No? Has it ever occurred to you why there's no iPhone 9? Because Apple can't count, and we trust them with our brand. Do you realize that Apple cannot count? Do you know that they skip iPhone 9? Has it ever occurred to you why? Y'all just don't question anything Apple does, right? Okay, because it's the 10th anniversary, the 10th one has to be iPhone X lah, iPhone 10, okay? But it's also X is a symbol for innovation. And actually, iPhone 10 signifies a break away from the original set of iPhones. The button is gone. Machine learning is artificial intelligence, all these new features. It's a whole new iPhone. This is basically a truly new generation of iPhones. It's using new technology that no iPhone before has ever used. Okay? Samsung. Great company. Some of you were hesitant in calling it innovative because for the longest time, for you said, it's just a copycat company, which is true. But a few years ago, they decided they cannot be copycats anymore. Their model used to be, let's find a great innovation, copy it, make it cheaper, we sell to the mass market. So the business model hasn't changed, but they have changed their products. They've gone ahead to try to innovate. That's why the Galaxy came about. That was truly an innovation, one of the first innovations. Then, because design thinking says if you want to innovate and try to create new things for humans, you should go and experience what people experience. Let me tell you a story about how they applied design thinking to create Samsung televisions. Any of you own a Samsung television? Yeah? Beautiful, right? When they were trying to design your Samsung television, they applied design thinking. What they did was they went to people's homes to study how people watch television. And when they entered people's homes to watch television, to watch how they watch television, they noticed something surprising. They were surprised by one fact. Do you know what the observation that surprised them was? That the television was turned off for most of the day. People don't watch television anymore. So for those who own a Samsung, how often do you turn on your TV? Not at all. So why do you own a TV if you don't turn it on and don't watch it?
No, I mean, eventually I will.
Eventually you will.
No, I could stream from my...
From your phone, yes.
and-
Yeah, before all this streaming was possible, right? There was a time before the streaming was good. No one was watching television anymore. But everyone still owns a television. If you think back, before our smartphones, before our internet, the television was on most of the time. But since the internet, since the smartphones all came in, we don't watch television. So why do we still buy a television? Because in a living room must have television now? It's a living room, it must have a television. Right? Which living room doesn't have a television? That's just wrong. Right? So Samsung realized that since every living room must have a television, let's make the television look beautiful as part of the furniture. So they designed these beautiful looking televisions. And to design a very beautiful television, they had to remove something that was really ugly with previous models of television. Ever occurred to you where the speakers are?
Soundbar.
Yeah, the soundbar is soundbar below, right? Do you know what happened to the quality of your sound? As opposed to the one that's side and pointing to you? What happens to the quality of the sound? It's worse. It has to be worse. But you know what? People don't care. Because since I don't watch TV anyway, right? And again, people don't really care. They realize this. People care more the fact that it looks good as part of furniture.
So just improve the aesthetics?
Yes. And that was it. But to improve the aesthetics, you also have to get rid of the keto rate so they have to flatten it. Right, of course, now they got really smart. Because of the internet, they realized since people don't watch television, smart TV. So now you can stream everything. So it's really clever. So they're responding to changes in people's behaviors. How we consume TV, how we consume music. The whole point about innovation, a design thinking approach, when we say human-centered, is understand the behaviors of your target audience and watch how it evolves. And in fact, what they've also done, if you take the iTunes example, they basically put Napster out of business because they recognize what people value. So they created value for people such that they will move away from one product to another. You're changing people's behaviors. You're not brainwashing them. Basically, you're creating a solution that people will always want. People know this is better. When I have 1,000 songs in my pocket, I want to access that 1,000 songs. I want to access that value proposition, okay? Then you get a company like Xiaomi, right? It was a bit of a cheeky example because I will always say, oh yeah, they can't be innovative because they're Chinese. But it turns out it's precisely because they're Chinese they're so innovative, because only a Chinese company can pull off this kind of business model innovation. But what we also don't realize is that this is an approach that's done by Airbnb, Amazon, Alibaba, Uber. They all do the same thing. They're leveraging technology to disrupt and change the business model, not the product. And that's where you can innovate. And then the last one you have is Dropbox, where you try to do everything. You innovate both on the product and the business model. So what I'm saying here is that when you look at this, it's really a 2x2, right? On this dimension is hold the product, change the business model. On the other dimension, hold the business model, change the product. And unless you want to do it the difficult way, which Dropbox did, they tried to change everything. My recommendation is the Dropbox approach is very difficult, but when it works beautifully. It's a unicorn. But you don't need to do that. That's why so many companies, so many enterprises fail. All you need to do is keep one constant, change the other dimension. A lot of successful. But what cuts across all these four enterprises, or four different types of enterprises, startups, big companies, small companies, digital, and all that, is a human-centered approach to innovating. Okay? Okay, I know time is coming up, but I have to share with you one last story. This, in my mind, is the best innovation that ever happened. And the best application of design thinking to create value for humans. Do you all know what this product is? Nissin. What does Nissin do? It's a company. Nissin is the name of the company. What's the product here? What did Nissin invent? No, they invented instant noodles first. How many of you eaten instant noodles? At least once in your life. Great product, right? Yeah, you love it, right? Innovative, right? No? You're not sure whether Nissin is instant noodles innovative. I'm going to prove to you now that what Nissin has created in instant noodles is more innovative and more impactful than anything Steve Jobs or Apple has ever done. If you go back to the origins, do you even know where instant noodles came and appeared in your life? They was invented just after the war. A gentleman by the name of Ando Momofuku, Taiwanese born but naturalized Japanese. After the war, he went back to his town in Japan and he noticed something. In Japan, a bowl of ramen, that's a staple meal, right? A bowl of noodles, ramen. But he noticed that in his town, pretty much everywhere in Japan at the time, you either had to go to a restaurant because it's complicated to make a bowl, or you have to wait in line in the streets, the street vendors, and wait in line for a long time. And it's expensive, right? So he asked himself, how do I figure out a way to deliver a bowl of ramen to every single Japanese person in their home without too much complication and cheap? So he came out with this idea of instant ramen, right? And he came out with this idea of an instant ramen where you don't have to do anything more than just pour hot water and it will cook. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that, right? You open the packet, put it in, pour hot water, it cooks. I mean, think about it. How much value, how much time is saving you as a time saver? Okay? But here's the really interesting thing. When he had the idea for instant ramen, he didn't know how to make it. He could cook it, but he couldn't dehydrate it. He needed to dehydrate it, right? But then he noticed that his wife was cooking tempura. You know tempura, when they deep fry they batter the vegetables and put it in? That process of deep frying would dehydrate. So he started to cook the noodle and then deep fry it to dehydrate it. And that was the solution to instant ramen. Great, right? Okay? So, what happens so he created this company called Nissin, released the very first instant noodle product called chicken ramen. Literally, it was called chicken ramen. In a Japanese accent, I don't have one, but you have to say in Japanese, chicken ramen, right? Wildly successful. And when this wildly successful happened, other companies started to pop up and make copies of it. And the copies of Nissin chicken ramen was terrible. So the Japanese government actually called him and said, you need to solve this problem. The quality of the copies are so poor, it's not healthy. You need to fix this problem and get all the other companies to make healthy ramen, instant noodles. I know it's a bit of a paradox. So, rumor has it, I wasn't there. His strategy was that he would call all his competitors into a room like this, and he said to all his competitors, he said, if you all promise to commit to making really high quality instant noodles, I will give you my secret recipe, the original recipe, for free. Ever heard of open source innovation or open innovation or open source? That is open source, well, give it for free. Just make sure you commit to it. So way before Linux, way before all these tech companies, Ando Momofuku practiced open innovation. Now, why was this such a smart idea? I never spoke to the gentleman, so I speculate two reasons why this was such a smart idea. First, it was human-centered. Why would he do this, right? The first thing is a human-centered approach to problem solving. His mission was to feed people in Japan. Everybody. Everybody should have a bowl of ramen. They should have access to it. It should be cheap. It should be convenient. So by giving it away, he made sure that he believed he was making sure that everybody would have access to a good bowl of ramen. But I think that's the second reason. This is a really smart idea. By giving it away for free, he just made Nissin instant noodle the dominant design. which means that if you want to enter the instant noodle market, your noodle better look like a Nissin noodle. It better taste like Nissin noodle, it better look like Nissin, it better work like Nissin noodle, or else this is not instant noodle. That's the reason why all your smartphones look like an Apple iPhone. It's not because Samsung can't innovate, it's not because all the other brands can't innovate. Because we all expect a smartphone to look exactly like this. Just ask BlackBerry. It's a company that was successful, but because it doesn't look like an iPhone, it's dead. I promise you, that's the real reason. They tried to ignore it. Look at the latest, it's some kind of hybrid, also dying. It has to look like an Apple iPhone. Telephone, no more tapping, it's all swiping. That's how a phone works. That's how a phone is supposed to work. The dominant design. So when you make your product the dominant design, the barriers to entry is really high. It must look like your product.
How did the first iPhone become successful? Because it's different than any other phone has ever appeared in the market.
So how did it happen? It was, I don't know. I don't remember. I have to find out. Well, I think they also had they had a string of failures. You have to remember this, right? There was actually an earlier version of the iPad or iPhone called Newton way back in the day. Didn't work because it was too clunky. Technology. At the same time, I think a lot of things were coming into place, right? Wrong, I know why. The iPhone came from the iPod. The click wheel. The click wheel led to the swiping motion. That's when they started inspiring them to realize that this is a more intuitive action. It was the first phone that you swipe stuff. That's why, it's the interface, I remember now. Okay? Now, back to the instant noodle story. It's not over, there's a lot more to this story. But I promise you, I'll let you free soon because you'll be hungry. I promise you. After he gave away all the secret recipes, all the companies adopted it. He became the dominant design. Nissin became dominant. What happens? The entire domestic market is conquered by instant noodles. When you conquer the domestic market, what's the next step in good business? Export, right? You expand overseas. Which country? You globalize. That's right. So which market did he go to? China? Wrong. Singapore, definitely wrong. The US, correct. Why the US? That's right. So the value proposition of instant, the reason why you say China is because of noodles, right? I can promise you, if you bring instant noodles at a point to China, they'll look at you, why are you giving me this second-rate stuff for? We already have noodles. The value proposition of instant noodles is instant, not noodles. So he decided to bring it to the US because this is a place where they value convenience, they value instant, they value fast food. But here's the really interesting thing. He brought instant noodles to the US, he explained how it works. He says back in Japan, we take a bowl, we open the thing, we put in the plate, pour hot water. The Americans looked at him and like, okay, we don't eat things out of bowls. We get what you're saying, but we don't eat things out of bowls. And we don't use chopsticks. But wait, hang on. Because we're American, we're kind of inventive. We drink stuff out of cups. So I noticed that I can take your noodle, I break it into pieces, I put it into a cup, pour the hot water, and I will use a fork to eat. That's exactly what American did. So he adapted the existing solution to his context. Ondo Momofuku noticed very carefully what this American gentleman was doing and said, what if we make cup noodles? Just by looking at how this gentleman adapted. In fact, if you buy a cup noodle today, you can still see the origins of the American because there's a fork that's folded in there because you use a fork. Right? So that's when he created instant noodles in a cup. And after creating the cup noodle, he faced two more problems. First problem, notice the shape of the cup. He realized that when you try to drop the noodle into the cup during the assembly, it doesn't sit properly. So how do you make sure that the noodle sits properly in the cup when you're assembling it? So instead of dropping the noodle into the cup, he drops the cup into the noodle. Clever, right? Now let me tell you the next really clever problem he was going to solve. Remember, a human-centered approach to design thinking or to innovation. It's about the human experience. The next question he asked, given that I pour hot water into a cup and I close it for it to cook, how do I make sure that every bite or every mouth of the instant noodle that I put in my mouth would taste exactly the same. And the consistency, it has to be, if I like al dente, every mouth has to be al dente. How do you make that happen? If you cut the cross-section of the instant noodle, you will notice something quite interesting. The density in which the instant noodle is packed at the top is very tight, it's very loose at the bottom. And this is a very specific design so that when you pour the hot water in and leave it to sit by itself, it will cook evenly. And in time, when you eat, every mouth will taste exactly the same. So after inventing cup noodles, it becomes a global phenomenon, right? Instant noodles is everywhere. See the market, see the impact. Does everybody in the world use or own an iPhone? No, but everybody, chances are, have had instant noodles at least once in your life. Then about 8 to 10 years ago, after, and that's very recently, after instant noodle is clearly a worldwide phenomenon, we all take it for granted now, Ando Momofuku, at 92 years old, 93 years, finds a new market. He actually finds a new market after dominating the global market. What's the new market? Vending machine? No, the market is already taken already. Yeah, vending machine, he did vending machines, yeah. He found a new market beyond the world. It's called space. Because instant noodles will work great in space. Yeah, here's a picture of a Japanese astronaut eating instant noodles in space. But with any new innovation, he realized there's a problem. He cannot bring a cup to space. Because if you bring a cup to space, you pour the hot water, what happens? The water will float away. Right? So he changes the packaging to one of these where you can shoot the hot water in. He changes the formula so that when the water mixes with the noodle, it cooks. It doesn't turn into a soup, it turns into a gravy. So that when he cuts it open and eats it, it doesn't float away. Great, right? And let me tell you, a few years after he died, Nissin goes and does another world first. It just happened within the last month. Another world first. You see this instant noodle that Nissin released? It's a Nakiru. This is the world's very first Michelin star instant noodle. True story. This instant noodle was just given a star by Michelin. A real star. This is it's not even and why does it have a star? Because of this ramen restaurant in Japan called Nakiru. Tantan mian, right? Tantan mian, Nakiru tantan mian. This restaurant has a Michelin star for having one of the world's best ramens. And why does Nissin have a star? Because this is the Nissin version of this. So basically, what Nissin has just done has recreated a Michelin star experience in a cup. And all you have to do is pour hot water. And the inspector who gave this star says that when he or she tried it, he or she was stunned at how similar the taste was. And if you think about it from a scientific standpoint, it's actually possible because it's chemicals. What Nissin has done really well is to be able to replicate the exact same taste, exact same experience, and all you have to do is pour hot water and go to the Japanese supermarket, pay the equivalent of $3, buy this off, put a bit of hot water, and you get a Michelin star experience. And this is why Nissin is a much more innovative company from a design thinking standpoint than Apple could ever be. Thank you.